Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. I can't hear you, so that's right. Just nod. Right. Well, thanks to Source and Caroline to invite me to talk to all 12 of you. It's great. The committed, or maybe not. I'm going to talk briefly about design for one planet economy and pro-environmental behaviours between the workplace and employees on a particular project I'm doing. So that's the context. We talk about design for one planet economy because everyone knows unless we reduce our emissions by 80% or 90% by 2050, we need an extra planet in order to absorb our emissions and provide our materials. And it's patently clear that we don't have an extra planet. The provocation is also, if you go onto a website or if you go to most communications and you fill in a carbon calculator, it ends up saying, oh, if everyone lived like you'd have 3 planets in order to survive. So you're disaffecting in the communication. So you do, even the Act on CO2 website from the government, with due respect, is flawed in many ways. So I'm looking at visual techniques that engage consumers and the general population through a particular metric. The project I did before that was the Wee Man sculpture, which I'm not going to talk about today, but if you go to the Eden project, you'll see a sculpture made out of the amount of electronic waste that we discard in one lifetime. I was the project director for that. 6 million hits on the website in the first 6 weeks. So again, visual communications and visual mnemonics can change people's perception. Just so you know, I have to tell you that it's draft design, but we're actually listed by The Guardian as one of the top 10 green consultancies in the business, in the country, sorry, the top 10 green businesses, the only consultancy in that list. So that's the promotion. And we work with some pretty big clients, and a lot in Hong Kong as well, where it can really get some effect. My world is mainly, I'm an industrial designer, I design products, and we do full LCAs, so evidence-based approaches, absolutely crucial, and we work for DEFRA. I write for National Geographic. I have my own magazine that goes into Smiths, and once a year it's published, and GOP does one, Angie World Thompson does one. I do the green version. I also judge the Observer Ethical Awards, and that's, over the last 5 years, the quality of entries has increased massively. And you also get to sit down with Elle Macpherson, Colin Firth, Natalie Imbruglia, Deborah Meaden. You can't have everything, can you? So again, really interesting sort of stuff. I also presented Channel 4's programme called Dumped, where people signed up for an eco-challenge and they ended up living on a landfill for 3 weeks. Again, massive interest, and we wrote a blog trying to communicate serious issues. So this is my way of getting media attention from not only us, of course, as a business, but trying to communicate sensible values. The project I'm going to talk about is one I'm doing with as one of Boris's London leaders. I'm not elected before you start to get agitated, and also I'm a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. You have to be under 40 before any of you think I'm not that young. But that includes Stella McCartney, the founder of Skype, the founder of Google. In fact, they're all about 12, you know. But this is a great way of getting communication out there through having provenance in government. So, with the Wee Man sculpture, when people looked at it, they said, this is me, this is my impact, this is my personal contribution to a particularly stressful environmental issue. And we thought we'd take this further. So we're doing is a project where actually people go online in business and in the general population, and you scale the humanoid form relative to your carbon emissions. And it's called the habit. It's like a hobbit. So your feet are mobility, your hands are home energy, your belly is how much food you consume, dairy, meat, all different types of meat. Your bum is how much recycling you do or don't do. Your mouth is water, and head domestic appliances. And you answer a number of questions. You start off with the androgynous humanoid form, and your body scales relative to your impact. I did actually say at this conference that half the men in the room look like this, but only half the room laughed, so I have to be really careful what I say. Now, the point here is if you look at pro-environmental behaviours between the workplace and employees, you could work for Source Consultancy or whoever it is, or you could work for DEFRA, but go home and be really quite polluting. You get in your Hummer and drive home. So what we're looking at is not what you do at work, it's what you do in your own lives. So BT have a commitment to a 20% reduction in CO2 for their employees in their own lives. Fujitsu Xerox in Japan is 7.8. Why 7.8? Who knows? The Japanese. 7.8% reduction in energy consumption in people in their own lives. And of course, through the workplace, it becomes very powerful. So we're working with Canon Europe, Transport for London, we've got 20,000 employees, and obviously GLA, Boris's office. We're doing a trial with 100 employees in each at the moment who are going online, doing their habit, and then getting prioritised tips on how to reduce their emissions. And the companies we got interested have almost as many members as the Women's Institute. Not quite. So there you go. You know what our website looks like. It's changinghabits.org. There's 2,700 people currently doing it across the UK, and 350 in those companies. Now, what's really also important is, tell me when I shut up.
Yep.
What's really important also, if you look at DEFRA's Well, let me step back a bit. If you design something or you try and market something, you try and treat everyone as some kind of homogenous lump. But we know there's a typology of 7 different behaviour types in the UK. And their ability and willingness to act along key behaviour goals set by the government varies from positive greens, whose ability and willingness is very high, the swampies, right the way down to honestly disengaged, where you've got Jeremy Clarkson. So what's been very important within our work with companies is to acknowledge that the propensity to engage on different messages depends on where you sit within this typology. So we've been very clever about targeting people and getting the right messages to them. Just so you know, it's quite a simple process. We start with employee recruitment. We look from all different sectors and all different grades, from directors right down. We do employee workshops. Then people calculate, and we have a forum set up so we can communicate and target with them. It's quite straightforward, really. And there you go, some screen grabs of the website. We looked at people dipping out of like the Act on CO2. Great website. It uses Amy data, which is kind of all right, but some of the data is quite old and not that accurate. Now, our lead scientist led the footprinting of Scotland, so we have quite a good German scientist, and it's hard to get anything by us. So we have we think, a very good calculator here. That's important. So the robustness of evidence is very important. And you basically go online, simple questions, and we timed how long people before they actually started to get bored. The only one was the light bulbs. How many light bulbs do you have in your house, and what type of light bulb? Now that requires a bit of effort, and people do tend to cheat a bit. So you have to be quite careful. Also, difference between beef, chicken, lamb and pork. Each has a different carbon footprint. So acknowledging this. Meat-Free Mondays by Sir Paul McCartney, can we link into other national campaigns? And also giving practical tips, things that people can actually do, and giving them good information, but not too much information. So you end up with your habit. You're starting obviously down here. You end up, say Jonathan here, he's got 18.2 tons, and then there's prioritised tips. Then you get up to 21 other tips. If you've done these, and these are quite simplistic, you can move on. So you can take the agenda to heart. So here we have a forum set up for each business as well. So we could have a WI forum, and here's Jim saying, well, is dimmer switch lighting impactful? So some of it can be quite boring, and then we have technical experts who will give them a response. Quite powerful. The other thing is, it's really important, Canon and the other guys want to use the reduction in CO2 as a way of communicating to their customers and their stakeholders generally about their carbon reduction activity within their own business. So we give them a numeral of CO2 reduction at the end of this. That's quite powerful. I'm going to finish in literally 1 minute. We've done it with A1GP, which no longer exists. I quite like the dichotomy of think green and motor racing. Maybe a conversation with Branson about that one day would be useful. I did it on the Channel 4 programme where we lined everyone up. They all talked about where they thought they were, and they organised themselves thinking green at one end, bad at another end. When we did the habit on them, there was a massive reordering, because what people perceive, reality versus perception, can be really different. Sasha would have taken a helicopter to the canteen, and poor old Lawrence became a vegetarian. I'm worried he's going to die out of starvation, but anyway. We've done it with Trevor Sorby, and we gave these as awards at the Observer Ethical Awards, not the ones just gone, the year before. And there's Colin Firth giving David Attenborough a Lifetime Achievement Award with one of these. I hope he hasn't put it in the bin, because that would be quite sad. And if you go to the Design Museum at the moment, massive interest internationally because it's on display as part of their Sustainable Futures exhibition. So any of you interested, or you want to go on and do it yourself, fine. If you want to get your companies involved, you can contact me or go on the Changing Habits website. Thank you. Was that quick enough?
Yep.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much, Rob. And earlier